Um, my name is Christine. I'm a software engineer at Point West. And today I would like to share some of the things I've learned as a developer in the security field. So my first encounter with the security team was through a 100-page security static scan report. And most of our findings was about log forging. Basically, it means that it is not recommended to directly log the user inputs. User inputs are what they call untrusted data. And that most of our findings can be resolved using input validation. So the idea of shift left is that we try to avoid having to go back to our code and then check for all our input fields and then add validation on each of them. So shift left means to integrate the security into the whole development lifecycle. And that's how I first got interested with security. And I also applied to the technical security group. But first, a disclaimer. Attacking targets without prior consent is illegal, and always a written consent is a must. So before we do our vulnerability assessments and security testing, we ensure that we have the written consent of our clients. And lastly, of course, do not be evil. So later, I will be sharing some of the tools we use for security testing. So we use Burp Suite and OWASP for security testing. And we use it for penetration testing and vulnerability assessments, and not as malicious users. And then there's Kali Linux. Kali has more than 600 penetration tools included. But today, I would like to share to you 3 of them. SQL map, Metasploit, and searchploit. SQL map was first introduced to me, and with this command, user data has already been compromised. So we now know all of the emails and password because of an injection vulnerability. So here, what we're trying to do is to execute this command and then dump the entire table for customer login. So this means that the entire table has been compromised, and we now know all of the emails and the passwords of the being used by the application. Also, if you notice that the password is base64 encoded, which means that this is the example of the entry in the password, C3RHHCNM So yes, it's not human readable, but humans can use tools to decode this base64 encoded password. So now we know that Tony's password is Star Wars. Sometimes we try to obfuscate information using encoding, but really it's not protecting the data because there are many readily available tools to decode this information. Now, not only that one user credential was compromised, but all of the user credentials. And this is just one table. So the data that we share with the application does not magically disappear in thin air. Usually the data will flow and get stored somewhere, and that usually is a database. So next, I have been trying to learn cross-site scripting using Metasploit because I heard of the capabilities of Metasploit. So by following these steps, someone like me who's so unfamiliar with Metasploit, keyloggers, and JavaScript was able to execute a JavaScript plus keylogger exploit. So here we're trying to launch Metasploit and then search for keylogger. It's like plug and play, and what's left is to find a page vulnerable to cross-site scripting. Once we search for keylogger, we can use an auxiliary called HTTP JavaScript keylogger, and then set the URI path test, and then run. And now we have a keylogger server that listens to the user's inputs. So let's try our keylogger using OWASP JuShop. This is an intentionally vulnerable application. So here you can see that I did not, we don't need a valid email and password in order to get into the application or in order to log into the application, because this application is vulnerable to injection. So for the username, for the email, I tried the one in red, and then I was able to get into the application. So we know that the profile page is vulnerable to cross-site scripting, and what we need to do here is to inject this script into the page. So here we see that once the malicious script is injected to the page, as far as the web page is concerned, this is a valid script that needs to be executed. And let's see the keylogger in action. So everything that the user types on this page will be sent to our server. For example, the user is typing XSS and then keylogger. It immediately gets sent to the server. And lastly, search exploit. What we're trying to do here is to search for keywords and try to find exploits related to struts. So the results, we have, as you can see, there are many results or exploits for struts and WordPress and jQuery. So this makes it more convenient to try to find vulnerabilities to applications. And as with anything technology related, the resources are overwhelming. How can anything be 100% secure? And yes, security is not a destination, just as the software will continue to change as long as there are users using it. And security is not a final state. So one of the books I've started reading is Agile Application Security. It's a question of how can security keep up with the evolving software development methodology that we use right now. So we have to rethink how we view security and software development. So with that, I would like to end with this quote that you're not going to be able to prove it is secure, only that the process and testers you had looked at it could find no more issues. So basically, it means that it's all about risk assessments and how we will respond to a security incident. And also, the goal is rarely to prove the target is 100% secure. Rather, it is to prove that you have done your due diligence to see whether it is secure enough. So thank you very much and have a wonderful rest of the afternoon.
Please stay here until the end.